a warm welcome to our fans of What Doesn't Kill Us. I'm Kenda, and I'm here to interview the elusive and mysterious Noel in his natural habitat. Hopefully, we can find out what makes his skin crawl, because I'm sure that'll interest all of us. But how are you doing, Noel?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Awesome. I have a couple different questions. Some you've already asked some of us, and some our friends want to chip in and ask you. One of the first things is a question you've asked us. What first really scared you as a kid?
Well, I've been thinking about it and trying to remember piece everything together. I'm pretty sure it was a dream, and it was a green mask. It was kind of half, Frankenstein from the movie Frankenstein, the green face, but it wasn't completely that, and it was chasing me around the house that we were living in or that we had moved from. See, I can't place it exactly in time, and I know that there was a painting I saw at a museum, but I
Oh,
feel like I was too young at that time to have gone to a museum and seen a painting. And I remember asking, see, my parents got divorced when I was 4, so I can't remember which house I was at
right.
and who I went to, where the museum was, because we went to New York a lot because all the family was in New York City. So, but and like, when did I see the painting, or before I had the dream, or it's like, how do all these things come together? And I can't remember the timeline, but I'm pretty sure that there was this painting, a surrealist, like, I thought it was Di Chirico, but I can't find it. I've been looking for days because I knew you were going to ask me this.
That's all good.
It's like a street scene, but a very minimal street scene, kind of like Twilight Zone. Sometimes they'll have an image like it on the preview, on the opening, titles and stuff like that. Like an empty streetscape, which Di Chirico does a lot of. Early 20th century Italian surrealist or metaphysician. And then I saw this one that had this horrific, the most horrible face I've ever seen, like a big, kind of a mask, a big, like, goblin mask face. It was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. And I think that somehow that got synthesized with a more classic, Frankenstein face.
Hmm.
And when we lived in Long Beach, there was a guy next door down the street who did these elaborate haunted houses. He was like he was the geek, like the horror geek of that time. And
Yeah.
I never went to these haunted houses. I guess I was too young, or maybe I wasn't. Anyway, I remember after it was over or before it happened, he was storing a lot of stuff in our backyard. So there were
Oh.
all these like tombstones and skeletons, like, in the backyard that I could see outside my bedroom window. Of course, they're styrofoam, but to a little kid, So, and I remember when the face was chasing me, that all that stuff was in the backyard.
Oh.
So there's all these different elements, and I put them all into one dream, and they were all separate dreams. I don't know, but that face, I'll never forget the way that face looked in the painting and in the dream. And Frankenstein face doesn't scare me at all, but it was the kind of thing where it was definitely a mask and just a face, but it's at, like, not at human. It's not at full height. It's at the height that you are.
Oh.
So it's like
Yeah.
chasing you as an object almost. It
Yeah.
kind of like that. It's that crazy thing with the ball. What's the one with the ball and the? It's got the blade, and it goes into people's heads. Ridiculous horror film.
I've never seen it.
People will know what I'm talking about, and the other, what doesn't kill us, people will know. I just forgetting the name right now, but it's like an object that chases you, essentially, a
Yeah.
malignant object that can follow you. So that was my earliest scariest memory, as far as I remember.
Oh. And I guess it's scarier as an object because there's no human error or
Exactly.
something to make no emotion attached to it. It's
Exactly.
just a thing.
That's exactly right. Like a thing that's coming after you, and
Because I
it's
can't kill it, so you're like,
right,
okay.
right.
Oh,
That's
that's
exactly right. And that's what we were talking about when we talked about. I was talking about Duel, the Spielberg film about the truck. And
Oh,
then it also made me think of the first Terminator, which I loved, because it's just this idea of, and other people have talked about similar things of like just the relentlessness of the chase, and that there's no human error in it. There's no
there's no way
psychology behind
to
it.
start it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
That's
exactly right. That describes it really well. And it had everything to do with what was going on in the house psychologically. I know that for a fact. You know what I mean? Because there was a
yeah.
divorce going on, or it had just happened, and it was ugly. And so it's not really mysterious. I just have to find that goddamn painting. I don't know which painting it is. I'm not even
What
sure
if
if
it
that's the
never
painter.
existed?
I know that's it's almost like that, but you can't trust everything online because not everything is online, right? People say it is, but it's really not.
Yeah. Well, have you found anything recently or any time in the past that lived up almost to what that mask was for you, like in a movie or another painting or
Well, I would say that the next set of things that scared me as a kid were television commercials for horror movies. Now, I
oh
don't know if you guys grew up in the era where there would be television commercials for horror movies on daytime television. Really
yeah.
freaking scary. Uh, Usually the previews or the advertisement was much scarier than the movie.
Oh yeah.
If
They
you
gotta show
look,
you its parts to make you want to see it.
or they'll do something really clever, like with It's Alive, that movie about the baby who comes out and he's got like
I've heard about that.
deformed baby and this, and they did this really clever thing and they were playing off of Rosemary's Baby, of course, and they had this baby carriage with this claw. Well, you didn't see the claw, and it played like, scary, like music box music or
Oh
a lullaby,
yeah.
and some voiceover is saying this is the most terrifying whatever, and the baby carriage slowly turns around, and then you see
Uh,
this claw, and the music, oh, it's so frightening, and then you see the movie, and it's like, wow, that doesn't even rise to the level of Muppet. Like that is the lamest thing I've ever seen.
I'll just watch the commercial again.
I know, and if a lot of these things are on YouTube, so check out the It's Alive one, and then there's one for it's a more obscure Italian American possession thing. These are all, of course, knockoffs of The Exorcist,
Yeah.
and other, Rosemary's. But all the big ones had all these knockoffs. This one was called Beyond the Door, and the preview is really terrifying of a woman possessed speaking right into the camera. And then I won't forget an ad for Suspiria, that kids can watch, like on daytime television,
Oh great.
including the scene where all of the maggots fall into their, have you seen Suspiria? There's the famous scene where all these maggots come down and all these girls. So this barrage of these little intense. So it was the music, it was the images, and it was like the idea of this horrifying thing is out there
Right.
for you to see, and this is just a taste of it. And of course, like you said, they only show the best parts, and you go and watch the movie. It's like Suspiria is so boring, and It's Alive is ridiculous, and Beyond
Yeah.
the Door is not very well done. And I mean, 25, no, I'm 35, 45 years later. No, not that far later, but 40 years later. And then also the music lead in to other TV shows. I mean, sometimes Twilight Zone was fine, and other times it would really frighten me. The intros and the outros, the episodes generally weren't too upsetting, but it was really the music, the sound. I'm very sensitive to sound. I think a lot of it comes from sound, and the Night Gallery sound music is really horrifying. I don't know the last time you've seen that, or if you even know Night Gallery.
Thanks.
Night Gallery it was like a 70s version of the Twilight Zone, but it's really not very good. And the same host, Rod Serling, hosted the episodes, but I don't think he was that involved with the writing and the directing. And it was a gallery, and you would walk around to all these paintings. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe the painting I'm thinking of was one of the paintings in the Night Gallery intros, but it wasn't. I swear to
I was gonna
God, it
say, we
wasn't.
get that lucky.
But yeah, if you want horror painting, go to the Night Gallery. Every episode had a different painting, or yeah, and you can get paintings or replicas of them online, and
Oh, that's awesome.
they're like horror painting. Some are better than others. It's not as good as what I saw in whatever
Yeah.
this museum was, but the outro music to that and these distorted faces, and there's some really scary stuff that on regular television, that wasn't even, you didn't have to go to the movie theater. And I know that when I go to these YouTube clips, there'll be, comments of people saying, "Oh my God, I was a kid and this scared the shit out of
Yeah.
me." All the same things that I would say they're probably right in my age range, so.
Interesting. Would you say that faces is a motif that um, can get to you depending on the situation?
That's a really good question, and I think it must be true because a lot of the things I'm thinking of include faces. A lot
Hmm.
of those, almost all of the night gallery paintings are of faces of some kind or another, faces in distress. And
Yeah.
then that outro thing, or maybe it was an intro thing, with the night gallery with the faces. Those were like faces in distorted mirrors, in like
Yeah.
mylar that's in squares, and yeah, that's really interesting. But I think you're right. I think the face is where a lot of. I'm trying to think of other examples, but it's
I
hard for
mean,
me. Oh, go
the
ahead. Sorry.
potential for horror is definitely there. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
it can invoke such powerful emotions just
Yeah,
from a glimpse of some horrified expression. So I could see
yeah.
that. I have a friend who's terrified of hands, and I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So she was at a gas station, and I was filling up the car, and she was in the passenger seat. And it's dark outside, and I know she's terrified of hands, so I just went like slap my hands
Oh,
against the glass, and she
because you're a
just
good friend.
lost it. Yeah. She was like, "Why would you do that to me? You're the devil."
So it really
Like in
was
tears.
true. It really worked. You're right, because I'm thinking of all of these scary, not all of them, but definitely Beyond the Door. It was about a horrible woman's face, and it was years later before I could watch The Exorcist. I mean that
Oh yeah,
I never would have been able to. No, absolutely, it's faces. You're right. You're right.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, well, I also have from Brady.
this
He would
one,
like to
this
know
one's coming from Brady.
if you could remake any horror film to make it better, which would you do? Why would you do it? And how would you do it?
Oh my God, Brady.
He's,
Oh,
he's got to do three questions in one.
that's huge though. That's how he thinks, in our conversation. I realized that he's thinking, how can I make this better? How can I make this better? And I never used to think that way. He's got me thinking that way now. So,
Yeah, it's interesting.
Jesus. I know there's an answer to this, but I just.
Even if you can only think of a part of an answer to it or something you can think of you might want to come back to later, that's okay too.
I
Because it is
mean,
pretty huge.
people are going to be very unhappy about this. This is the first thing that comes to mind. I think I would. I wouldn't say remake. Is the question say remake?
I think he should. Yeah, he said if he could remake.
I mean, I'm thinking of all my favorites, but of course you don't want to remake your favorites. That's why they're your favorites. There's nothing to change. I mean, I do think that John Carpenter's The Thing, would have been more successful if he had just pulled back a bit.
Just a little
I
bit.
think they do start to get too much. The latex, all of the special effects. I mean, a lot of it's exciting, but it does overwhelm. I think what's interesting about The Thing is everything else that's going on. I mean, that's what I think about horror in general. Is like, if we took the horror out, what else is going on, and what's there. And to me, that's what's interesting about The Thing, that it's about men together. It's about blue collar men mostly. It's about men working together without women. And I think it has a lot to say about what happens in an environment like that. And then when these extraordinary, unprecedented effects, grotesqueries come, I feel like a lot of the other stuff gets pushed out. And I think that people would have maybe it wouldn't have been so harshly criticized at the time. Maybe if people had seen more that he was dealing with, it was more than just horror and it was more than just gore. It's not even gore, it's like grotesquerie. That's such a weird answer, but that has been something I've thought of, and people are always going. And the thing is now considered a classic, but it took 25 years. I don't know if that would have helped. Another example, it's Under the Skin, which isn't really horror. That's a film where I feel like we could have added in a few narrative
Hmm.
plugs, like just a
Yeah.
little bit more information that wouldn't
Help
have hurt.
out.
Huh?
So just to help out a
Yeah,
little bit.
just a little bit. Like, I don't want everything explained, but that's a film where, like, just a couple, like, two or three short things, just to fill in some things, it wouldn't have detracted from the overall film. It wouldn't have made it any less interesting. So occasionally I'll have a thought like that. It Follows doesn't add up, but I don't want it to be fixed because I like the fact that it doesn't make perfect sense. Like, sometimes I feel that way about a film. Oy vey. I mean,
Sorry.
no, I'm just trying to, these are just the things that I think about because they're films I like and I care
Yeah,
about. You kind of have to care about a film to want to remake it, I feel like.
that's true.
To do a remake with, I would say that with Halloween, the opening scene, I don't believe for a second that that little boy looks like he can barely hold that knife up. I don't know if you remember the very first scene where he's supposed to have just stabbed his sister. And they got this teeny little skinny boy who looks so terrified just to be on camera. And the knife is so big, he can barely hold it up. I thought,
Oh,
maybe we should have gotten a different actor to stage that in such a way that it actually looked like he actually stabbed his sister. But then you think, well, maybe John Carpenter did that on purpose. Maybe it's not meant to be taken literally. Maybe there's something else that's going on. So
it's
it's
interesting.
always an interesting question, and there's so
Maybe
many
it's
ways to.
more like a victim instead of the perpetrator. I don't know.
Oh, do you
Maybe
think that's what he was trying to do? I think you're
maybe.
right.
Or like maybe you're supposed to sympathize with him for that split second before, all
Right.
else goes crazy.
I think you're absolutely right. That's what he was trying to do, but I didn't believe physically that he was actually capable of
Yeah.
lifting the knife. He could barely get it. It was
Like
like
maybe he just dropped it a couple times and it got hit its mark.
that's kind
Yeah.
of yeah. But I think you're right. I think that's exactly what Carpenter was trying to communicate.
Hmm.
There are times when I wish the reception of a film would be different. When I'm sad that a film is not seen to be as good as it is, or that it is taken in high regard, and it's not very good. Or so I guess in that case, it's not remaking; it's doing one of my essays and saying, "Look at this movie, look at all the great things in it," or "Look at this movie, look at all the bad things in it." So that's
Yeah.
more criticism than it is remaking.
Interesting. So it'd
Yeah.
be more like you'd rather be able to review a movie and have more people see that than to remake it in its entirety.
But yeah, because I love like video art, experimental pieces. We see a lot of it on YouTube now. That's
Mhm.
not experimental at all. But back in the day before YouTube and before you had access to a lot of easily video editing software, I really liked video art that took other material and remixed it, you know? And I did a lot of that in my own work for theater and film. So in a way, you're remaking a film in a way, but by taking it apart and putting it back together, or taking parts of it and like doing things with it or messing with it in some way. So that is a sort of retelling, or you're using somebody else's material to tell a story, and that's what's so great about what we have set up now with the technology we have now, is that we can when we have conversations, you could just edit in the images that you want, or if you're doing an essay or explicating something, you just show the things you want to show. And in a way, you're remaking in a certain way, or you're reading through a film in a very particular way, make it your own. Like I've made my own version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you want to see my version of it, this is it, and this is how I would weave the film together. Without having to remake, right? Because
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a long answer. It's such a provocative question because I I've been thinking about that and doing versions of that. I think writing an essay or writing an analysis or having a conversation is a way of making a film your own,
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm
Well,
sure that Brady's going to be like, I didn't mean that. None of that answers the question, but
no, I feel that you answered it in your own way, and that's how you would take it and make something your own. So it doesn't necessarily have to be you're going to go running out into the fields with the camera and how you're going to take those shots. So I think that's
yeah,
fine. You're
yeah.
putting your own interpretation on something, and it makes it your own.
I don't have the patience to make something that big, to make something that large. Because I think there are many movies in any given movie.
That's true. Just depends on the direction that you decide to go with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, going back to what scared you as a child, you mentioned that you had that nightmare. Was that a recurring nightmare? Do you tend to have really bad nightmares?
I don't tend to have really bad nightmares, and that's one of the reasons why I remember that one, because it was the first real nightmare I ever had.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've had a lot of them. I don't think my dreams are happy most of the time. They're usually pretty mundane, and they're unremarkable. And I mean, I feel like they're pretty easy to analyze, or they don't get too bizarre. So when they do, it's. But no, I don't. The green face may have come up once or twice. This is so many years ago now. But when I do have a nightmare, I pretty much, I usually remember it because it is so unusual. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. That's different so far from what we've been hearing with Monica and then Brady, apparently.
And Crystal too.
Oh, she has nightmares too?
Well, it's not so much the nightmares. It's the night. The night.
Night terrors or...
It's not the night. What is it called? It's the sleep paralysis. Right. Right.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
right.
that's her whole thing. She says it's not necessarily horror related, but it is interesting that everybody's got a different kind of,
We all got our own struggles, I guess.
yeah, our sleep.
Attract us to dark stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I I have from Monica, what is your zombie apocalypse disaster kit?
My zombie apocalypse disaster kit.
Yeah, I guess if the world ended,
Oh
there are
my
zombies
God.
everywhere. What would you bring with you?
I feel like that has been my kit.
Or a backpack? Whatever. Do you have like a dog that you would bring with you?
Well, I would definitely take my dogs for sure. Any apocalypse, I'd take the dogs.
Okay.
Because I think dogs know how to handle stress situation. Dogs know how to handle surviving in the wild,
That's
or
true.
in an yeah. I think that they figure out pretty quick what's necessary to kind of get through or get to the next thing. So definitely dogs. Um, I guess usually there's not zombie dogs.
I
Oh
don't
God,
think
zombie kit. I mean, you don't want to carry a bunch of weaponry with you. Plus, these zombies can be killed in any number of ways. Um, I mean, I'm no good at this. I mean, I guess I would take what anybody else would, which would be, a cell phone, a map. I don't know. Zombie apocalypse. Because zombie apocalypse thing could mean you're going into a bunker, right? I mean,
good.
it could be.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're gonna do at that point.
I guess like if you had to go all survivalist and as far as you know, everyone else is either dead or a zombie and you have to take stuff with you, what would you take before leaving your
I
house?
would take nothing except for the living thing, except for the dogs, and if I had a Bart Simpson savior type. Um, or a child. There's no point because you can get what you need along the way. So I would take the minimum amount required. Because if you're going to be, you can't be reliant on what you've got on what you're taking, stuff you're taking with you. There's no way that most of it may turn out to be useless if you bring a gun and it doesn't work, or if you bring, you
Yeah.
have to. I would say I would be as inconspicuous as possible and try to figure out what's going on before I make any decisions about stuff I'm going to pick up. So I'm going to say the minimum. A compass is always good. North, south, north, south, east, west is always good, even though
Hard to wrong with the compass.
Yeah.
So you don't know how to use it, then you're screwed. But
With the dogs, though, dog food. No, we'd find food. We'd find food along the way.
well, if they're immune to the virus, you could just feed them dead zombie parts and they'll be fine.
They might be into that.
You never
Yeah.
know.
So that's what I would do. I think that's what I would do. Is
Awesome.
really the minimum necessary.
That's a good answer.
Thanks. Took me a while to
More
get
thought than I
there.
would put into it. I'd be like, I don't know. I'd go to Costco and lock the doors. Like, that's where I'd
Yeah,
go.
I get depressed. I mean, we've already seen, Day of the Dead, and
Mm.
it doesn't work out. Locking yourself
What?
import to the into the oh God, what am I trying to say? You can't inure yourself with products. You've seen
Mm.
Day of the Dead, right?
It's
Dawn of
been a
the
while.
Wait, Night of the Living Dead. No, Dawn of the Dead is the one where they're in the mall.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
mall one
yeah.
I
Right.
remember. Yeah.
I've learned so much from George Romero. We all have.
We have to learn life lessons somewhere.
Yeah.
Why not? All right, well, this one is more in a antagonistic vein, I suppose. If you had to kill someone and get away with it, how would you do it?
Um.
So don't kill anyone after this because they'll know. But yeah,
If I wanted to kill someone and get away with it,
yeah, like everyone has their own little theories from watching CSI or whatever. Like I don't know, if you had to shave your whole body so you don't leave hair behind or something else
oh,
ridiculous.
I would hire somebody else to do it.
Huh?
I would have somebody else do it.
Interesting.
And I mean, if there was a chance that they would tell somebody, then I would have to personally kill them. But I think the idea is to keep yourself as physically distanced as possible from the crime scene. The people that do that require. I wonder how much it costs. I mean,
I feel like it's probably a hefty
I
sum.
would hope, but maybe things are getting cheaper these days. I don't know. But
Maybe there's honor.
I would try to be like in a different country. I try to be so far from the event that it wouldn't even be. Yeah. So you just have to trust that one person. So that's how I would do it.
What if you did have to kill that one person because they screwed up or almost leaked it out that it was you?
Well, then it would have to be as quick and painless. I guess the gun with the silencer.
That's pretty good.
I think
Stick a potato on the end. Who not?
with a potato on the end. Is that the old school silencer?
That's what I've heard. I don't. You could fact check me. I don't know. I always thought it was funny.
Yeah, I would just do it quick and fast and clean. I wouldn't do anything elaborate with poisons or any of that. So many things can go wrong, as we've learned from so many shows and movies.
It's very true. Just keep it simple. That's the
Yeah,
way.
but mostly to try to avoid actually doing it as much as possible.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Excellent. What else do I have here? I have Crystal, who wants to ask, what is your favorite horror film jump scare?
Oh. Oh, it's got to be the dinner scene of an alien. It has to be the chest
Scene.
bursting.
It's
Yeah.
always good.
Yeah, that's really to this day it always works.
Like even just rewatching it now, you're still
Oh
like stuck.
yeah.
Oh
Well,
man,
you still get that visceral intense because it's so well done,
yeah.
and it's just so shocking and it's so beautifully acted. I mean, a lot of it has to do with John Hurt being so 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 good
Mhm.
playing feeling better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not John. Yeah, John Hurt. John Hurt's the one who gets the chest burst. Yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind. But I think I would stick with that.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
you don't feel that anything's ever topped that? That's still your number one.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that's so well. It's not just that it's a great jump scare. It's that it's so unique and no one's if it's ever happened before I've never seen it and um, the kind of physical, particularly a male body being torn from the inside out that way is so it violates so many assumptions about the body and the male body. And with a woman, it would be like, oh, it's a freakish childbirth. But with a
Right.
man, it's like, you can't even go
Like that doesn't
there.
happen.
Yeah, it's like it defies so many things that we. So, I mean, I think it works for a variety of reasons. Not just that it's a jump, but that
Yeah,
it's got all so much with the astonishment that you feel.
that's really cool because
Yeah,
usually with body horror, it's usually women
yeah,
that are used quite often for body horror, either with rape or mutations or freak surgeries, whatever.
yeah.
So that is an interesting point. I don't really see too often that they mess with the male body in that.
So yeah, definitely, I think Alien works on so many levels, and it's still because even if you're not jumping because you're not expecting it, you're still feeling that visceral
Disturbed.
like
Yeah.
what? Yeah, like and you empathize with the people watching because it's really because you have such every single actor in that movie is so skilled and talented that you just have to look at any one of their faces in response to what's happening to John Hurt to
Interesting.
see that's just as scary, you know.
So more than empathizing with the victim, you're actually empathizing with the people who are forced to watch what he's going through.
Yeah, and it's scary to see adults who seem to have their shit together lose it. You know what I mean? It's almost like mommy and daddy. When they lose it, it's really frightening. And so you see
Yeah.
these characters are supposed to know, all bets are off. As soon as that happens in that movie, everybody's now, the rug has now been pulled out from everybody, the audience and the characters, the other characters. And you see them. I don't know, how could you do that as an actor, to be on set and that's going to happen? Or maybe they didn't tell him or something.
I know
But
a
if
lot of
you,
directors love to do that. They love
yeah,
to
to get
not
that,
help.
yeah. But when
Yeah.
you see the looks on all of their faces, all of those adult actors, it's really, yeah, seeing people react to things can be very much more powerful than seeing the thing itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a psychological term called vicarious trauma, where you don't have to go through it, but watching somebody else go through
Right,
something
right.
or hearing about it often enough and
Yeah,
you have the same psychological symptoms as the person who is traumatized. So that's
absolutely. And that's
totally
why
cool.
that's really smart because I'm thinking that is one of the first horror movies I saw at the theater, and I remember going with my mom, and I did the math, and I realized I was 11. Can you imagine? But my mom had treated me like an adult from very early on, and I remember leaving feeling like exhausted, like a roller coaster. And I think that's exactly right. Is by the end you have gone through. You've had that vicarious experience following Ripley through all the different stages of what she has to go through, and I really felt depleted, and like I had,
Emotionally and spiritually and
yeah,
physically. Yeah,
yeah, interesting.
that's how I felt after I saw the devil. After
Oh,
one. Finally got through it, but like there's some things that just take chunks out of you that you can't get back, and that was one of them.
yeah. Aliens. I don't know why Aliens fun, and something like I Saw the Devil is not. I don't know if it has to do with my age or the material itself, or I don't know.
Mhm.
Even back then, even though my mom and I were terrified and gripping onto our seat through the whole thing, we had been warned.
Yeah.
But my mom, well, I better answer the questions before I start going off. My mom had a similar experience when she saw Psycho in the theater,
Oh yeah.
of people getting up. Like, she said my father was getting up out of his seat. Now, I don't know if she meant that it was to leave or it was out of sheer physiological,
Oh,
I guess, like you said,
stress
vicarious,
or
maybe
oh, interesting.
vicarious empathy during the shower scene. That people, we don't realize how profoundly that knocked people. Not just, it wasn't just about thrill, it was deeper than that.
Well, my grandma, it's funny, she tells the story about I guess her and my grandpa went to go see Psycho in the theaters and she was just so beyond traumatized
Yeah.
and terrified and later she was home and she was taking a shower and I guess he thought it would be hilarious to reach for the shower and try to scare the crap out of her. And apparently she fainted and he thought he killed her. And he was running around the house carrying her naked, crying hysterically. She's just, fainted. And I was like,
I shouldn't laugh, that's amazing though.
yeah. I
That's
was like,
like,
well, I I can't think of a better revenge than that. Like,
Yeah, really, to make him think you
I
killed
think you
him.
killed the person you love. Well, there you go.
I bet that happened in so many homes though. After they went to see the movie,
Oh
the
yeah.
husband tried to scare the wife. Yeah, but it is that physiological what you said, the vicarious. What'd you call it?
Vicarious trauma.
Vicarious trauma. Yeah, I guess that's what horror movies are about.
I'm trying to think of other movies that do a good job showing the reactions of people to something horrifying more than what's horrifying itself. And I mean, the first thing I could think of was The Shining with the little boy, in the hallway,
Right,
just like
right, right,
freaking
right.
out. But it
Yep.
was like that wasn't really a jump scare, so I don't know if that counts because from
But
what I remember, things just kind of appeared quietly, and then you notice it and kind of freak.
but that would be vicarious trauma. I mean, you're experiencing his trauma. It almost doesn't matter what's traumatizing him. It's more traumatic to see his trauma.
Yeah, that I remember that being hard just because it was a little boy
Yeah,
and watching him suffer through things. I was like, whew.
yeah,
And did you watch the Babadook?
yeah, yeah. We
That
talked a
that
little bit
was
about that.
that was similar watching that little boy almost be like abused. It was like I'm having a hard time watching this movie right now.
Yeah, it's just that it seemed like he was being abused by his mother and nothing else. But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't want to go there because I know everyone loves it. I don't want to.
that's okay. We don't have to
It
delve.
just it didn't resonate for me beyond. It just seemed like maternal, parental abuse, even though I know there was more going
Yeah,
on. But it didn't have that same thing that The Shining did, where there could have been parental abuse, but then there could have been something psychological, or there could have been something like it. There were so many things when we saw Danny traumatized. We could have read it on so many different levels, and he never resolves it. He never explains it, which is
right.
why the film initially was so unsatisfying to so many people, because everything was kept so. Now it's a classic. You,
Yeah.
you guys don't remember how much that was hated when it came out, and how much The Thing was hated, and how people thought Halloween was so trashy. It's funny. It's funny just to see how things have changed so much over time.
That is interesting
Yeah,
because most of us weren't around for initial. I could probably say all of us weren't around for the
I think
initial
so. Yeah, yeah,
reactions of some of those movies. So it's kind of cool to hear them because for us, it's always been ingrained in our head. Oh, this is a classic. This is a
yeah.
classic. You don't see back when people are like, "This is garbage."
People hated The Shining.
I had mixed feelings about it, but
Yeah,
as I had already read the book beforehand, and I loved the book, and then comparing it, obviously it's going to be completely different. But I watched it for the first time in a history of film and music class. So we would analyze film scores, and
oh,
the director was relating it to different scenes in the movie, and that
yeah.
made me appreciate it a lot more
Oh, I'm
because
sure.
I'd see what Kubrick was doing, and I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
"This is pretty sweet."
yeah.
So I guess I see them as standalone things. I don't see it as, oh, it's based off the book. It's like separate projects, I
Right,
guess.
right. Oh, that must have been so interesting to look at it from that perspective.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah,
was cool because it was all the modernist meta musicians at the
yeah.
time. You know, I like that guy that just opened up a piano and like hit a tennis ball around inside of it, and he was like, "This is my music," and people like were like, "You're a terrible person," but it was art still, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting.
And now to us, it sounds like like a score for a film. It doesn't seem so
Yeah,
freakish to us, to
you're
our
like, oh, we've
generation.
already heard it enough times, right? It's
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I do also have. Does your love of horror extend to other media? And if it does, like books, music, art.
I
Now,
would,
because I know you mentioned you liked the art in the Night Gallery, or maybe it scared you. Not
yeah, it
sure.
scared me. I wouldn't put it on the walls. It's a little cheesy. Some of it's better than others. No, it really doesn't because I don't listen to scores of horror films,
Oh, interesting.
and I don't do video games. I just don't do video games at all, just because
Mhm.
I've never. It's. I mean, I did arcade video games, but I've never really done the home video game thing. And I don't read horror. I usually read nonfiction, and lately it's been nonfiction about horror. But that's not really horror literature. You know what I mean? That's like
It's not.
analysis of and the fiction I do read is generally not horror. Not lately, anyway. Or maybe that'll happen at some point. TV would be the other place that I would see, and I do consider it a different medium, although less and less now. Obviously, there's more crossover. But for now, yeah, I'm much more interested how it's framed in a filmic and telefilmic context.
Hmm.
Because I'm more, in some ways, I'm as interested in how it's framed and how it's responded to, and how it fits into the field of cinema or whatever moving image world, than as like the story, yet another story of the monster. Do you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
not that interested in stories about monsters, but I'm interested in how stories of monsters are represented and how
Hmm.
those reflect other films about monsters and how people respond and how the stories of monsters have changed over the years. You know what I mean? Like I'm more interested in like a more meta view than I am in the actual story. Now I did not too long ago, well over the last 5 years, I read Frankenstein Dracula and I have read Poe,
Mhm.
and it was very enlightening to read the original novels of Frankenstein
Okay.
Dracula because, as I've said with Dracula, is also true, even more true with Frankenstein. It has nothing to do with what you see on the screen. It like couldn't be any further. So at least the versions I've seen, the classic versions. So
Are
no, I would say no. Um, I can't think of any other media that. I mean, there's the fashion thing. I don't know that that's media. Photography, maybe.
mhm.
But even that, I'm pretty like art that's deliberately trying to horrify you. It feels most of the time it feels cheap to me. Not necessarily. I mean, I didn't say I liked any of the art that I showed to compare with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I just said it was there. I
Yeah.
didn't like all of it. Although, yeah. So no, short answer, no. It's mostly film and then possibly TV. Although we haven't really done a lot of, like, I'm not interested in watching every episode of The Walking Dead and analyzing that. I don't know. I was really into serial television, but now I'm less so.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'd rather
Yeah.
I'd rather see a different movie. I'd rather see 10 different
Yeah.
movies than see a 10 episode or a 20, or a 20 episode season of something.
Well, I can get behind you on that because I'm the same way. It, it's easier for me to sit down and set aside 2 hours of time than be like, okay, I'm going to watch 4 episodes of this, and then I never watch it again because I'm like, oh, I don't have the time.
I
I don't
don't
know.
know.
I'm weird.
I don't know how Monica does it. She sees movies and she keeps up with the TV shows and she's got homework and she's got a full-time job and she's got a boyfriend.
It's crazy.
Mad props, Monica. Not to say that everybody else isn't insanely busy too, but
Kudos.
yeah, I can't do the TV thing anymore.
I know. She told me like, oh, I see 4 to 5 horror movies a week. I was like, what? I'm
Yeah.
lucky if I see one once every 2 to 3 weeks because I'll have the time to sit down and be like, okay, no distractions. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do laundry. I'm just going to watch.
I think she turns them on in the background is what I'm starting to realize.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I don't think she sits and like turns on the lights out and just focus. I think it's there's multiple things going on. That I
That
think that's
makes
part of it. Also, what I started to realize with serialized television is that they go terribly awry at some point, with almost without fail. Even if something's really
sense.
good, at a certain point, a certain season, things are gonna go wonk, and they're probably gonna go wonk bad, and it's gonna be really hard to get, And I just thought it's a long journey, and I want my
Yeah.
journey. Yeah, getting involved in this podcast, I realize there's so many films I haven't seen, and I want to catch up on the things I feel I need to know before I get involved in any indulgent long form. So yeah, same thing, time.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, I totally understand it. um, I also have. Okay, so I remember I talked to you kind of about my phobias of like claustrophobia and dying or whatever. And everyone I've asked this question to, I'm always interested by their different answers. Like, what's the worst way, in your opinion, to die?
I guess it would be to die slowly of a painful, crippling disease. I mean, the less dramatic, the worse.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
You want it
It's not quick.
fast. Yeah, slow and a slow decomposition, and certainly the brain going. It can't be pleasant. Assuming we don't know, maybe the people that can't remember anything are having a great time. We don't know what it feels like. I guess, or I don't know what it feels like. Maybe people who deal with those people do know, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think the slower it is, the yuckier probably. Is
Fair
it?
enough.
Yeah, that's not really a phobia. I'm not
Yeah,
phobic about it, but that's I'm not in a big hurry to have it
that's
go
like
that
the
direction.
scariest that you can think of. Like, because I could see that being the worst. Is it the scariest for you too?
In terms of phobia, I would say that I developed a fear of heights. I think after my father died, I just got really anxious about being in high places. I'm pretty sure that came from that seemed to happen. It seemed to be an unconscious reaction, maybe.
Hmm.
Was it my father's death? Something triggered a fear of heights at one point, but that's not that unusual. And I guess dying by falling probably isn't that bad. You probably get used to the falling sensation.
And then you
Oh, I
don't want to
guess you're
get
dreading the. I guess it is bad because you're dreading the
the
final. Yeah,
impact.
the impact. And they say
Yeah.
when people commit suicide, they regret it as soon as they've jumped, and they spend the time falling. The ones who survived, they find
Oh,
out that the
I was gonna
regret.
say, how
Yeah,
would they
how would
know?
they know? How would they know? Um, but you said yours is drowning by. You said like water filling up, rising water, right? That's your
Yeah,
thing.
like being in an elevator filling up with water. Um, my fiance, he's told me his is it was weirdly specific. It was like accidental operation or something, or like waking up and being tied down and somebody's operating on him.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's pretty terrifying.
Somebody stealing his organs or something like
Yeah,
that.
yes, or like, the whole Johnny grab your gun, being under anesthesia or being paralyzed and not being able to communicate you're alive and they're doing an
Right.
autopsy on you.
Right.
And
Right.
I was
The
like, wow,
but what do they call that now? The trapped when you're trapped in your body and you
no,
can't communicate. There's a syndrome now, a very rare
really
syndrome where your mind is completely 100% fine,
act
active in the body you're paralyzed.
like trapped syndrome or something.
It's something like that, but it's got a much better word.
I'll have to look it up. That sounds cool.
Truthfully, I'm not afraid of death. I guess I'm not afraid of it. It doesn't worry me. I
I
think
think that's
it's
an
a,
accomplishment.
I think it's a good thing that we die. I
Yeah.
think it's a great relief to know that it doesn't go on forever.
Yeah, because it can be pretty stinky.
Yeah, it's just yeah, it's long. Life is long,
Yeah.
for better or worse, And I'm not the way you die. Yeah, it's not. It's I certainly don't want to be skinned alive. Like
Yeah, no.
like a character in a particular film we've discussed. But I don't want it prolonged. I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah, whatever form that takes, I don't want it prolonged. So yeah, you know.
We could just form like a pact right now between the two of us. Or if
Say,
anything starts to go awry, like, all right, I'll be there with the cyanide pill. We'll be all right.
God, I hope I don't have to. It doesn't have to. I would like to be one of those people who can decide when they're going to die and how they're going to die. I think some people have that ability, or they seem to, but who really knows? I assume
Well,
my mom's going to be like that, but I don't know.
isn't it legal in California now to for assisted
I
suicides?
was thinking less that and just somebody who has like total who's just sense of decision making or sense of who they are and where they are and what they're doing so absolute
Hmm.
of just like I'm going to die in my sleep and just sort of make it happen or sort of will yourself into
Yeah.
I'm
Will your
not
reality into existence?
yeah or people who stay alive to see what the grandchildren and then
Do
they die right after they have the reuniting with the grandchildren. You hear stuff like that, or the wife who dies immediately after the husband dies.
yeah.
Like you can will things in a certain way. Maybe I'd like to be one of those people, but who knows?
That's pretty cool.
That's
I've
probably
never thought about it that way
that's
though.
probably a whole fantasy.
It's okay. It's good to have
Yeah,
fantasies.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I think I've gotten through most of the questions that they wanted me to ask you.
Really? That's it?
Uh,
I've only
yeah,
talked
they
for an
only had
hour.
two, but Brady packed in three in one,
That's
so he
true.
kind of cheated.
I don't know if he'll like my answer. I have to keep thinking.
Oh, is your mom keeping up with everything?
Oh, yeah, she watches it all. She loves it.
I saw the Texas Chainsaw one, that mask she gave you.
Yeah.
That is the shit of nightmares. What was that?
She's like, I got you this great mask. Can you wear it at one of the. And then I looked at what I looked like on the camera and I was like, oh my God, this is really horrifying. Like, this is the kind of mask in a movie people would wear
Murder people.
yeah, to do horrible things to people.
Yeah, that was pretty like shocking.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that when I was watching the video. I was like, holy shit, what is he wearing? That was great though.
So yeah, so she's got a good. She's fun. She really enjoys what we have to say. She likes hearing. She likes all you guys as much as she's watching all of you as much as me. So she's
That's awesome.
yeah. She
We
really
should get
thinks
your mom as a guest at some point. That would be pretty fun.
it would be. It would be. I don't know
She
if she.
seems awesome.
I would love for her to talk about her experiences seeing Psycho because she was there. You know what I mean? That was
Yeah,
like a really special, important moment in the history of horror cinema to be in the audience when that movie was out. And she
you
has
could do
very vivid
special
memories.
topics with her if you wanted to, and kind of delve into all the stuff about Psycho. And
I was thinking of that. I just don't know if she has a camera or not, but I'll have to see. I'll have to see. And maybe talk about some other horror movies she's seen because I know she really loved The Haunting. She saw that when it came out, and some of the older school horror that
nice.
yeah.
That'd be pretty good.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you for talking with me. I'd love to talk with you more, but we're already going on like an
I
hour
know. I
17,
know.
and
I'll be cutting this pretty
yeah,
severely.
I was like, 'cause you're the one stuck editing it, so
It's all right. It's all right. I'm used to it. It's becoming. It's not bad. It can
yeah,
be fun.
we do a kick-ass job either way. So
Oh,
I'm
thanks.
excited.
Thank you. Well, thank you for letting me participate.
Sure.
It's
Thanks
been
for
great.
answering our ridiculous questions and
Well,
doing your best to answer them.
everybody's been so good to me, welcoming me into the gang, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun. And I'm learning a lot. I'm learning so much from everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll
Well,
talk
thank you
soon.
again.
My pleasure.